Hi, everyone. So great. Thanks for being here today. And the idea of this session is to perfect your pitch and create a memorable impression, and really wanted to do this session ahead of some of the major events that are coming up. I know a lot of projects will be pitching, so this is a good opportunity to do this with Fred from Funfair Ventures. And in this session, we're going to cover communication, creating a standout deck, practical advice for your presentation, and post-pitch action. So Fred, I will let you take it away. And
Cool.
Please feel free to ask any questions in the chat as well.
Awesome. So I'll try and run through this as quickly as I can. Let me just, okay, so just a little bit of background. I've been in game development for a long time, product management and blockchain since Bitcoin was being traded through bank transfers with no exchanges. Okay, been in the gambling and gaming space, combining both areas where I worked at, and I've been playing games way too long with the Atari consoles back in the day. So that's kind of gives you a little bit of a background of why I kind of get involved with Web3 more than why I'm talking about what I'm doing today. So I think the relevant part of why I'm doing this presentation is basically because I've been creating presentations for more than 30 years. Yes, it might be weird, but I'm actually that old, but I've been doing presentations for that long. And I've been raising funds through presentations for a substantial amount of time. You know, a lot of you guys know me as a VC, but I am actually, I've been on the other side several times, and not only as a founder, but also as a employee of a bigger company where you needed to go through board approvals with presentations to get funding for your projects. As a VC, I've seen hundreds of thousands of decks. So last year, I think we've counted more than 2,000 decks that came through us. And I've helped a lot of people in the last 2 years with their decks, personally spending time reviewing their decks and helping them, okay? One of the things that actually I think is fundamental in this presentation is that you need to understand that the deck is a selling tool, a sales tool, correct? And I have actually made an effort during my life to learn how to sell stuff through learning from some of the biggest door selling companies. You know, Herbalife and Hoover are some examples where I actually done the courses to learn how to sell in their techniques. And one of the things that actually, gives me a bit of an advantage is my background is actually in graphic design. So that helps a little bit, and this is one of the points that I think is important with any presentation. Anyway, so, the goal is essentially just to provide some principles. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how to make a pitch, but it's about how to enhance your communication, how to enhance your pitch decks, your presentation, and your data sharing. Okay, the important thing is that when you're presenting in either physical or through a deck or through a Zoom call, that you create a memorable impression. And that is the main factor to successfully raise funds or achieve what you want to do out of your pitch session. So when I started looking at pitching, and I think a lot of people talk about pitch as a pitch deck, I kind of go back to basics, the communication principles, correct? These are fundamental. And I think a lot of the pitches that I've seen and people present, I think these are where some of the biggest problems come from. But like a lot of people I know do this. I've seen too many of these, but stop using buzzwords, okay? We all know the buzzwords. We all work in these spaces. There is no difference when a founder to a VC. We all know the buzzwords. So what we, think is, oh yeah, buzzwords are going to sell it. No, really, what investors are looking for is a solid business model, not the buzzwords. We're in the Web3 space. We're in the crypto space. So there's no need to actually just fill up my deck with those words, okay? They're not providing additional information. They're just literally reiterating things, saying like, building a game, oh yeah, I use AI for this, this, and this. Okay, great, but that's not really a business model or why your the investors are going to invest in your business, okay? And on top of that, just be smart about it. If everyone else is doing it, well, then there's no added value, correct? You're just no different than anyone else if your deck is full of buzzwords and really not a lot of content, okay? Simple thing, I think, to keep in mind. The other big problem, and I see this on almost every single deck, is there's way too much information. We get overloaded with information. And the reality is when you're presenting in 5 minutes, Nobody can actually take that much of information. So you need to make it very simple, correct? You need to take it down to the basics. And all of the boring and heavy data, that goes into something we'll talk about later, which is the data room, okay? You need to be engaging. You don't need to be loading your deck with information and your presentation with information, okay? There's hopefully we can share the deck afterwards, but I put some details here about this. This is a fundamental step of a presentation. And if you see this presentation and see some of the examples that I talk about, very small amount of content, okay? Yeah, it's really important. Now, one way to get through getting rid of the buzzwords and also making your pitch deck super simple is the elevator pitch. I'm not sure if everyone knows about what this is, but it's the best way to practice being simple and summarized, okay? Which is 30 seconds to a minute. You need to be able to deliver your message in the time it goes from ground floor to the first floor. End of conversation. That's it. You're able to summarize it so perfectly that the person is now interested in looking at more stuff. Okay. If you try and fit data in there, you're not going to have enough time, correct? By the time you get to the first floor, you're still on the intro. So, introduction, a hook, which means something that's going to keep people interested, a solution, a unique value that your project has compared to the others, market potential, and finally a call to action. These need to be done in 30 seconds to a minute, okay? So that's where you need to practice this to perfection. Because no matter what, oh, I'm going to get a cab, and in one minute you're going to be able to tell that person your pitch, and you're going to be able to sell it. Yeah, that's the elevator pitch. So the best way to prepare yourself to present is to be able to achieve this. Once you've achieved that, then you can extend for longer presentations. Yeah. I think this is something a little bit deeper, but it is about communication, about how you communicate. I've put a link to the person that actually talks a lot about this. I've read his books, a couple of books he wrote, but there's tons of YouTube material that he has made, which is a start with why you're doing it, correct? It's not the what, and it's not the how. A lot of the buzzwords are related with the what and the how, and not really the why. Why am I using or building this project? Why is this project going to be successful, correct? And on top of that, it makes it more emotional because we're not interested in the technology when we first introduce the project, correct? We want to make an emotional connection so that people get interested. If people don't get motivated and interested, they are not going to follow through. So I would suggest to kind of research a little bit about the techniques of the why and the reasons behind the why. But it's a really good way to frame your pitch deck and your elevator pitch in the whys as opposed in the hows, which is, oh, I use blockchain technology, I use NFTs and crypto, and I do all this stuff. That doesn't matter. It's why you're doing it that is important, okay? So, finally, this drives me nuts, and I've seen tons of presentations, people talking to me either on Zoom or in pitch sessions and live sessions. And what I get out of those things is they might lead the project, they might understand it, but they don't seem to put the visual cues that they know what they're talking about. A lot of the times people are reading from their presentations. If you're a founder or you're a person, a CEO or involved with a project, you need to be talking with confidence that you know what you're talking about. Right? You can't be reading, because reading means you've not been prepared or you don't know the material enough. That's what it's transmitted to the investors and other people that are looking at it. Okay, it's fundamental. Prepare. You need to practice it, because otherwise it just transpires as someone that is underprepared or doesn't know what they're on about. Okay, it's really important. Of course, like we talked about being simple and all the other bits, correct? But when we talked about knowing what you're on about, which means you need to know your numbers. Maybe it's not because when you're presenting, but when you're being asked the questions on where you're following up on the further meeting, correct? You need to know your numbers. You need to know your market, your industry, your customers, correct? And you need to know your competition and be honest about it. Saying that you're just better than everyone in the market, well, really doesn't translate into someone that actually knows the market and someone that can actually be honest about it. So it is important. And I think this is especially important when we talk about the gaming space. I see a lot of projects that have some cool ideas and some cool concepts, but really don't get the market. And then they put themselves in positions where their projects really need to be, positioned with their competition in the market, and they can't do that properly. They can't talk about the numbers. They don't know the numbers. Someone the other day said to me, "Oh yeah, 56% of players are willing to buy NFTs," and I actually thought that really weird. That statistic didn't add up, and actually I went and found that that statistic was from 2022. Well, that's 2 years old, and as we know, crypto changes a lot, correct? So again, be careful with the numbers and know your market, know all of those details. It's important so that you don't end up kind of fumbling or actually showing that you don't know what you're on about, and that is really the danger when we're presenting. Now, this is a bit, I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit too quickly. Again, the deck will be available so that everyone can have a look and study and learn from these things. But I always look at it, a pitch deck, and I did want to put a slide here that was a little different, which was a proper business card and a name written on a torn piece of paper, correct? Now, if you think about it, that the business card is a much better way of saying my name and it looks professional, correct? Well, a pitch deck is just an extended business card. If it isn't good enough, that's because you're not putting enough effort, correct? So it is a business card, and it can't just be a torn piece of paper or something half baked or half delivered. Yeah. So it's fundamental that we understand that concept. If we don't put our effort in there, we're going to suffer the consequence of it. Now, in terms of presentation, I did a lot of research prior to doing this presentation and based on some of the things that I had done before. And the first slide is the most important slide in your presentation because it's a slide that is going to stay visible for longer before you start the presentation, correct? Now, I've done this with several businesses, which is, can I understand your business in the first slide? And I've actually done some exercises where we actually ended up building sentences that could explain the business in one line. Okay, I call it the one-liner, but it's where it needs to be. It's the first slide, one-liner, that actually explains what you're doing in a memorable way. So super important, because actually that's the slide that I'm going to get immediately, correct? And that actually gets my mind thinking about the next slides. And as we go through the presentation, oh, cool. And now I get it where they're going with this. Yeah. Now, is it easy? No, not at all. But what I would suggest is we now have a tool that is awesome for this, ChatGPT. Take advantage of it, correct? Brainstorm with it. If you're not using it, then you should, because that's what it actually brings value to it. And I can tell you that I use it quite often for a multitude of things. And this is an example of something that I've done with several projects. And I said, go to ChatGPT and play around with words and see what comes up. And then we can massage that and make it better. But super important. This will probably be the most important bit of your deck in terms of the time and eyes put on your deck. Okay. Now, I think after the one-liner, we need to think about a very important thing. This is part of the product development in my experience. Unique value proposition. Okay. What makes you better? What makes you different? And what's going to make you succeed above all. Okay. And this is why investors will invest in you. Correct. What are your unique values? What do you bring to the table that others haven't brought? Or what are you doing that is better and different than others? Okay, and you need to present those. That's the second thing. You've already done your one-liner. Okay, why I'm here for? Well, I'm going to do this, and why am I different? And again, I repeat the term why, correct, and not how or what, as we spoke previously, and you guys know. So of course, okay, I presented my one-liner. I presented the value proposition. Okay, I've seen a lot of decks where I actually get half through the deck and I don't actually know what the product is. They spoke to me about blockchain, AI, crypto, NFTs, decentralized, and all that stuff, but we still haven't actually understood what the product is. Right? Like, it needs to be so clear that, like I said in the elevator's pitch, correct? You need to be able to express it in less than between 30 seconds and 1 minute. So it needs to be clear. Okay. Don't keep your product explanation to the end. It needs to be first second, first slide so that I actually know what you want about very quickly. And if you're struggling with it, then what I would suggest is have people read it that are not part of your business and say, do you understand what we're doing? What is the product or service we're selling? And if you're not, if they aren't, after a couple of slides, then you have to go back and do it again. I've seen decks that had 4 slides of team information. So like, okay, well, they have more slides on the team than actually on the rest of the stuff. Why would I be interested? What product are they building? Which is crazy. I think, sure, that you need to highlight the experience and the background of the relevant that is relevant to the project. You don't need to talk about everything else, correct? But above else, what you need to showcase is, why would the team be able to deliver, correct? Don't need to have 30 people presented in a deck. What you need to be showing is, look, we have this experience in this field. We have experience in a set of subfields, and we believe because of this, we are able to deliver on the project that we are building. Okay. Now, of course, it's super helpful for a VC or an investor to know how big the team is, correct? But that doesn't mean I have to list everyone in the directory of the team to be able to showcase. So, highlight the team. Our team is X amount of people, and that is it. Don't try and make it too much of it. It's not a marketing proposition to display every single company that the person has worked for. And a lot of what I've seen is a bit like the buzzwords. Everyone now tags every single company that is big, even though they were just, there for a month or so. And what a lot of people don't realize is the VCs now, they actually have companies doing DDs on the projects. And we can actually figure out all of these things fairly quickly without actually having to worry too much about it. Okay. Yeah, obvious, isn't it? I think so. I was watching a video that said that in the Bible there's a saying, "Ask and you shall receive." And I was thinking, oh, that's really, I know, but it's so obvious, isn't it? Well, why do you do a pitch deck if you have no ask? Unless you're just presenting because you want people to know about it. But if you're presenting to VCs, well, there must be an ask, even if the ask is, "Hey, network with me," correct? Be involved, collaborate. But there needs to be ask, and especially for investment. What are you asking from the investors? Be clear about what you're asking. What's the terms? What's the raise and the valuation, correct? What are, the use of the funds? And make sure that those use of funds are then aligned with your forecast that you're going to provide later, correct? Because, all of this needs to gel and make sense. But yeah, come on. I've seen decks where I ended up looking at the deck and say, oh, well, this is all great, but I have no clue what they're asking for. Are they raising pre-seed, the equity token, how much they're raising, what's the valuation? None of that information is there. So why am I supposed to do, unless I really got excited about the other parts, correct? And I now need to chase them up. It would be useful to have that information just to make sure that I'm not going to be wasting my time if instead of being a 1 million project is a 100 million project, correct? Now, final slide. Well, you've done the first slide, correct? You presented awesomely. What's happened next? I see tons of people doing this mistake. Okay, thank you, bye. That's this last slide. Really? You need to have a call to action, correct? You need to excite people that have already enjoyed that awesome 2-3 minutes that you had into reaching out to you. Yeah. So I see a lot of people putting a thank you, but you need to provide your contact details. How can people reach out? One of the things that I'm doing more and more, and a lot of people are doing, which is really good. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone can actually read a QR code, correct? It's much harder than actually putting an email at the bottom that I can't read properly, or because I'm slow. Me especially, I'm getting old, so I can't actually type as fast as my kids on the phone. I can't type the bloody email address. So if I have a QR code, just take a picture and have a call to action. Say to people that are in the audience, come and get more information. Hey, we're here to talk with you. It's just not the thank you. It needs to be a call to action to get people excited about it. Okay? Yeah. So as you saw, there was a couple of bits of slides, but a lot of stuff on the presentation. And I think that's the fundamental bit, correct? It's about combining the presenting and communication skills with kind of building at least this fundamental bit of the slides. And again, as you've seen before, I made sure that the points that I was focusing on were small, not a lot of. Why? Because we want the deck to be simple, correct? We need to be able to be effective in our communication. If we put all of that other information, it's not going to be simple. It's not going to be, it's going to be overwhelming to the audience, correct? And that doesn't benefit anyone. Now, I did say that one of the things that actually is helpful to me when building decks and presentations is the how it looks. Yeah. Well, okay, I'm lucky enough to have studied design and work with Photoshop, Illustrator, and all that stuff. That doesn't mean that it's just something I can do and nobody can do it, correct? With this presentation and actually others, I've actually used the same tool that I mentioned about the one-liner. ChatGPT is your friend. All of these images here were generated using a tool like that. And I remember Mel said, Fred, all these images, are they AI generated? I say, yeah, they are. But I did it also on purpose because I wanted to kind of make sure that all of this content was easily available to us. Yeah. But the reality is it needs to be appealing. If you're just going to put something which is does not look good, that isn't, you know, that hasn't does not demonstrate that you put some effort in making your presentation look good, that just translates to the VC. He can't even be bothered in building, he or she can't be bothered in building a good business card to impress me so that I can actually put the money on his project. That's the fundamental bit with it, correct? If you are looking at investing in a business, would you put money in a business where the people that are running it and presenting to you can't be bothered to actually put the effort in? I would probably say that the answer would be no. I wouldn't put any money in there, correct? And it doesn't cost a lot. As I said, you can use ChatGPT. I've had decks that I've worked with where actually I noticed which slides had a designer been involved with and which slides were only done by the CEO. And by the time that we finished redoing the deck, I said, okay, great. Now you get that person that did those slides to actually redo the whole presentation. And it was day and night. The content was there, but visually it was way more appealing. Okay. And as simple as that. Again, as I said, going back to the fact that you have to put the effort and you have to know what you're talking about. You have spent some time or money in making your deck presentable, correct? At the end of the day, when you're physically presenting, you're representing the brand. You need to be on par with the brand, correct? And you need to know and show that you are confident, knowledgeable, but you also are caring about how the brand actually looks when you're presenting it, correct? Now, some of you have seen me at several BGA events and other events, correct? I'm not a big fan of t-shirts, so I tend to avoid using those t-shirts, but I do have and make the effort of taking some hoodies with the Funfair brand, have some of my, QR codes and stuff like this. This is, me as a VC. Now, if you're pitching and you have a project, you need to put the effort about brand, and brand goes from the way you talk to the way you're showing up to the deck, and you need to make sure that you're consistent across all of the mediums, correct? But that they have a right impact without, again, being a sensory overload, and by being simple and good enough. Okay, fundamental. I think this just reiterates the same thing we said before. The same way as I said before, you need to be expressive and confident. You need to demonstrate that you're passionate and enthusiastic about what you're sharing. I've seen people presenting that were bored to death of being there. Well, then don't be there. Find someone that you can work with that can present a project for you. Because the worst part that you can do is actually go there and look like you're bored and you don't want to be there, which translates into, well, he doesn't care. Correct? And maybe it doesn't care. Maybe I don't have the communication skills. I usually say I'm a shy guy, so I don't like public speaking and all that stuff. But There's no chance. Either you do it or you don't. And if you don't, find someone that can do it for you and you can work with them, correct? The final bit, and I think this is something that a lot of people get scared about public speaking, and I gave up on getting scared with public speaking because, first of all, I'm old enough to believe that I actually know what I'm talking about and really don't have to worry about it, right? I know more about my project than anyone else. It's my bloody project. And I've studied and researched, and I'm so good at it that I actually am confident about it. It's my passion. So this is super important for you to understand that when you're presenting and doing all these things, well, I doubt that there's people that know more about your project than yourself. And if you're doing what I've said before, then you also know the market super well. And when people start talking with you, like me, could ask stupid questions, you can just say, no, Fred, you have no clue what you want about. Let me explain you what I'm talking about. Okay? So really important when we're presenting. Now, this goes back to what I said about the elevator pitch and two presentations. You need to know how long you have to present, correct? Not all presentations are the same duration and the same size. So you need to be able to adjust to that. This is why I said practice your elevator pitch, because worst case, the situation, you have your elevator pitch for a 1 minute presentation. You don't even need a deck. Deck is for amateurs. No, you go in and say the 1 minute pitch and you're good. Now, it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You've practiced your deck. You practice your presentation. Okay, it works. If it needs to be longer or shorter, you need to adjust it, okay? Because that's the most important bit. You don't want to end up halfway through a presentation and run out of time. What you want is have a bit of time for questions so that people can ask you questions and then go like, bloody hell, not only was good at presenting, but he also knows how to answer all of the questions, okay? Now, final bit here, which is also very important, you need to know who you're going to speak to, correct? You need to target what you're going to talk to the audience. Like we said, if we're talking with VCs, you have an ask about a raise. If you're talking with, partners in other companies, you're probably not going to talk about what you're raising. So your pitch deck needs to be adjusted to those things. Okay, fundamental. It's really important that you have that. I would suggest always have your pitch decks on a Google Drive or something. Several of them presented. The 1 minute pitch deck, 3 minutes pitch deck, 10 minute pitch deck for VCs, pitch deck for partners and friends and family. You might start doing family presentations for they can help you. But it is important that you know the target audience and you know the time that you have. Now, I did mention at the beginning something about data rooms, correct? And you might be all wondering, well, okay, Fred, that's all dandy. Okay, you said really short pitch decks, not a lot of data. Where the hell am I going to put all my data that people ask me? Well, that's why there's a call to action at the end of the presentation, isn't it? So you can actually say, hey, or if it's not written, but you have a link and then you say at the presentation, hey, but if you want a lot of details, we have all of that data available. Reach out to us and we'll give you all that information, correct? But you can't just put all of that data in the pitch deck. So a couple of things. Like I said, on the deck, you need to be able to share contacts so they can follow up. You need to provide the material through the data room. And this is probably something that people might not know. People in the VC space and investors and angels, they have this weird habit of sharing decks between them called deal flow. If you don't have a way of allowing people to share this stuff and even to track who sees your deck, well, you're going to miss out, correct? So make sure that not only you have all those decks prepared, but you also have a way for people to get that additional information they want to contact you, but also to be able to share that information between them, okay? And if you can, I know it's a little bit more expensive, but if you can track through analytics who accesses your deck, that is also very good because then you can actually follow through on that, okay? I think we talk about decks, we talk about presentation and communication. I think people forget this bit dramatically, correct? Like social platforms and messaging platforms are fundamental for the sales nowadays. That's where I see most of the information. So you have to have a pre-built blurb. So when you're meeting someone and you go like, oh, send me your LinkedIn or Telegram details, and you swap contacts, the first thing you do afterwards is boom, pre-built blurb on Telegram saying, hey, this is who we are. They're super cool. Check out our deck, our videos, our data room, whatever information. Oh, and by the way, here's our Calendly or calendar link. Come and book a meeting. See, same strategy, good presentation, summarized, access to additional information, and access to call to actions so they can actually reach out, correct? Again, these principles apply to all these things. And like I said, data room, contact information, all of that. Now, oh, what's happened there? I think this is a copy, but we'll skip that. Okay.
Do we lose Fred?
You're muted, Fred. Fred,
I don't think he can hear you.
Your sound's disappeared.
Can you hear me now?
You're really low, but yes.
Okay, sorry, my mic died on me. Sorry, not sure what happened there. Anyway, sorry, networking. I see a lot of decks, and I talk with a lot of people, and I say, "Hey, so you're going to what's your next event?" And they go, "No, I'm not going to that event. I'm not. We're busy building." And I get it. We're all busy building stuff and doing work, right? The reality is, a lot of these networking side events are where you're going to get your leads. Not only because you've gone there, but you made good connections. People that might not be the ones that are going to invest in you, but are people that might open the doors. Correct? So, you need to be building relationships exactly with the tools that I've just spoke about in order to be able to then get the second degree connections that might pay out. Even if that VC is not going to invest in you, he will know, because that's how they get the deals, a lot of people, and will open the door, and that will open other doors. So, to me, it's fundamental when we talk about presentation communication and decks that we not forget that the side events are a big chunk of where you're going to get your network and spread your stuff to other VCs and other people that might help you. Okay, so that's just a tip that I believe is fundamental. I'm actually going to do an article on the networking and side events in the near future to kind of give a little bit of more feedback on that. Finally, just I think I've mentioned data room to several people, and the reality is people have no clue what a data room is. So I hope all of you guys know what a data room is and what it's useful. But basically, it just is a repository where I can actually, as a person interested in your project, can have a look at all of the data that doesn't fit in that thing that needs to be short, brief, and not an overload. Correct? The pitch deck, the elevator pitch, the blurb, all of that is small and concise. So a data room is a place where I can actually get all of that information. It could be revenue forecasts, it could be go-to-market strategy, it could be tokenomics, it could be an extended pitch, trailers, videos, whatever other information you can have. Because what people don't understand is the more information you have there, the people can cherry pick to see, the better. You're not in a constrained time, and you're not the one driving the information. It's people want the call to action to go and see that information. So as such, you need to have that there. Okay, fundamental. Even if it's just a Google Drive where you store all of that data, organize it, of course, and name it properly, because a person like me, I'm not the brightest one, correct? So if you don't explain it what it is, I won't be able to understand it. So, but basically, that it's super important so that you don't overload people immediately with data. I think the final thing is, we don't know all the answers to all the questions, and that's all fine, correct? So what we need to be able is to answer the simple questions and also be honest about it. If you have a hard question, you don't know the answer, I'll get back to you on that. Here's my contact. Let's talk. Let's book a Zoom call, correct? And then take note of that question and go and answer it. because a lot of people don't know the answers, but then they don't make an effort to answer those questions. So it's having a question is the best call to action, which means, oh, they're interested. Oh, I can't answer. That's not a problem. That's good. That means we can talk further. And before you say you don't know, you say, well, let's catch up and then answer it and then talk with them. Okay. Oh, there's a note here at the bottom again. We'll share the presentation, which is just something I found quite interesting. Projects tend to forecast for like 3, 4, 5 years. Reality is, if you're just starting up, it's a little bit unrealistic to kind of forecast for 5 years. So be honest about it and say, now look, we more or less have an idea where we want to go in the first few years, correct? But you see, this is my point, correct? You don't have to have all of the answers, but you have to have some information. Okay. And I think that is it in terms of what I wanted to kind of pass along. And then I'll leave it to you guys to ask questions. That's my call to action. Was this helpful? Oh, Luis, come on. What's the question?
Hey, hi. Yeah, thank you for that, Fred. That was really helpful. I have a question, as you said about the pitch deck being your extended business card. Um, Nowadays a lot of times we send a bigger pitch deck with more information, and then we use something called like a live deck or a more
Mm-hmm.
concise deck for in-person pitching. What could be some points to keep it all consistent? Because you have to edit. I mean, the live deck needs to be more graphical, less text. But then when people are reading the pitch decks on their own, they might want more information. I know now that the data room plays a huge part on that, but I want to have a coherent experience between, for example, ABC reading the deck, and then when I go and pitch them, the deck that I'm using that might be more concise, so I don't overload them, has a coherent
Yep.
experience for them.
So I think there's two parts of it. I think there's no harm, depending on, you can structure your data room with the two structures. There's a lot of times where I see that people are not keen on sharing the data room until they actually spoke with a person and they have a little bit more involvement, because there's some data there is a little bit more confidential and you might not want to share it, correct? Nonetheless, it doesn't mean anything, because I might not like the project, not invest, and I still have had access to that data, correct? So I think the right place for a lot of the data is actually not on deck. It's on the data room. And what you could do is have a two-tiered data room where you put some, which is just additional information that anyone can access, correct? And then have a more in-depth one for those people that you already got kind of a certainty that you're having a more serious conversation. Nonetheless, I think if the basic principle goes back to what I said about the design and quality of a deck, correct? Yeah, I know it's a bit of an annoying bit. You can't just pluck a Word document. But then again, it's the same thing. You write the text, you need to make sure it's a proper text, correct? Use Grammarly or something. And like I said, you have to have multiple decks. I'll just be careful about how big they are, correct? But you need to put the effort in to make them visually consistent. That's just as simple as it is. There's, I try and keep a little bit of a consistency between my style of presentations in different topics, correct? They're not identical and they're not perfect, but I, as someone that is doing this without kind of doing it because it's I'm trying to raise capital, I put that effort. Does it take time? Yeah, I spent probably 2-3 hours just visually tweaking a deck that I'm presenting. I'm sure if that answers the question.
And if I could follow up just really quickly, would you use the same deck that you send over online before meeting the person as the same presentation that you will use when pitching to them live?
Yeah, I think what I actually, as a VC, what I like to do is, okay, send me your deck. You send you the deck. I read it quickly. I overview some stuff. The next step is actually not going to the nitty-gritty details of a deck. Actually, what I want next is to actually sit down and have a Zoom or a in-person call. And then what I'm going to ask is for you to tell me your version that is not the one that I've read. Because when people are speaking, they actually demonstrate the passion they have or not have for the project, the knowledge they have or don't have for the project, correct? So that's the second, I think, step in knowing a project. Now, third one is, okay, yeah, cool. Well, this guy was not convincing. He did say what I felt was a good approach. And now I want to drill into the more in-depth conversation. Okay, hey, I want your data room. I want your projections. I want gameplays, all of that footage. If I haven't got it already, let's drill down into the technology, the product, the team, the roadmap, the race, all of that stuff. Correct? So I think that's the approach that I would look at doing. And yes, I would send immediately a small deck that has the basic fundamental things. I would then jump in a call. And what I would also do if I was on your side and say, hey, you looked at the deck at the end of the call. Any feedback from me? Anything on that deck that wasn't good enough that I should, improve on? This is one of the things one of the reasons I actually was super happy when Mel asked me to do this is actually I've been doing this with a lot of projects as just something that I've enjoyed doing, which is kind of reviewing some decks and giving my feedback. But I'm always careful to say to people, hey, I'm not the master of decks, correct, in presentations. So don't just trust me. Go and ask other people to review it and to give you feedback. And then if they say, well, that's just not great, so you can come back and shout at me. Make sense?
Thank you so much for your answer.
No worries. Any more questions? Ooh. Yeah.
Matteo, go.
Yeah, hi Fred. Thank you very much for that. It was very very interesting. How do you feel about videos on decks, like maybe showcasing the product?
I have no problem with that. I think as long as they don't just fire up when the slide opens, because sometimes it's just weird. I do think, especially with games, it is super important because games and other areas where I visually want to know what it is about, correct? We nowadays have this thing where we don't move games into investment committees without actually having done a gameplay. But that's a bit more in depth. But I definitely want to be able to, for my partners, to see how the game looks. So I think it's But as I think I said on the presentation, show the product, show what it is, explain what it is. I can't be confused about what your product is, correct? So if there is a video that kind of provides that added information, that's great, and it isn't a sensory overload in any shape or form, correct? It's an image that I can actually press that triangle and actually play it, so it's super simple.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Fred. Much
No
appreciated.
worries. No worries. Any more questions? Ooh. Okay, got a couple more questions. So who wants to start first?
Vallejo, maybe you want to go for it.
Hi, it's me. Yeah.
Hey.
Yes.
Hi. My question is how necessary is to put a specific ask in terms of financial ask in the deck, or if it is possible to be open to collaboration or to discussion about the things, the evaluation of the company and so on. If you can just be open to collaboration and to integrate other people or venture capitals or so on in the team.
So look, the reality is, as I said, you need to know what you're presenting and to who you're presenting, correct? If you're talking to VCs, it would be beneficial to at least know what's the ask, correct? Even if you don't put a number saying, hey, yeah, we're fundraising, we're doing a pre-seed, a token sale, something like that, correct? Like otherwise, okay, cool. Yeah, it was great to meet you. What am I doing next, correct? Like, like people ask, hey, Fred, can I talk with you? And I say, sure, let's have a Zoom call, correct? But I'd really like to know, why are they talking to me? And they go like, oh, we're raising, or we just wanted some advice, or we wanted to do a collaboration or something. So I think there's a value in actually having an ask, because otherwise people might not know what you're doing. And it might not be the same for every instance you might be doing for collaboration to present your product. Imagine you were presenting at Gamescom, correct? You're not going to put hey, we're raising money, because you're presenting to gamers in an audience that probably isn't the people are looking at giving you an investment, correct?
Mhm.
So that it really depends. I think a lot of the times you need to think that people are busy with their jobs, correct? And if it's VCs and angels, there's some information that you give up front allows them to make a decision if they're going to spend time or not. And depending on the size of your business and the people you're talking, you're looking at a smaller raise, smaller check sizes, correct? Like I said, we look at early stage startups. If I'm seeing a presentation, and of course I already have a feeling for that, correct? I'll just look at a number, for example, team size, team location, and I can actually quite easily understand how much they are going to cost and so how much their raise needs to be. Yes. But if I didn't have that information, I would be like, well, am I going to waste money when this project might be a 70 million raise and I'm actually not going to get involved with a 70 million raise because that's a Series A or B or C? So it's up to you. Again, I'm not prescribing quantities. I'm just saying be smart about it and put yourself in the other side. You don't want to waste people's time and you want to be able for them to make a decision and a call to action quickly.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. Benjamin, you had a question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was super interesting. I was a bit wondering because I felt like doing this type of pitch is quite difficult with projects that are already kind of live at a sort of more advanced stage, because often there tends to be lots of info that could be conveyed, like not sometimes it's not very straightforward, especially with crypto projects that tend to have kind of many different aspects of it. Do you usually advise to kind of try to follow one specific narrative in the pitch, or like kind of one specific aspect of the project, or trying to be
No, I can't say that because I don't know what the project is, correct? It really depends on the project. But what I can say to you, I actually disagree that a project that is live has more difficulties or is unable to put a more concise deck or something because they're live. I recently was in a BGA event where I was jury to a couple of projects. There was one there that was live, and it was good. I think if you're live, yeah, sure, you have tons of data. Again, as I said, the urge to put all that data in front of people is not always a good thing. You still need to be captivating and, passionate about it, but not a sensory overload, correct? So yeah, great. Okay, you're live. You have numbers. Show some basic numbers saying, look, we're super cool. We have 1 million players. Come and talk with us. That's the thing. Now, then after that, you can actually give all of the information. You see, but not all people are looking for all that information. And you don't know what the people that are going to present to want. You don't know the real detail of the information. I was actually yesterday, I was watching someone talking about something in a way I had never thought about, which is small projects worry too much about runway and worry less about lift. And what people should look about is lift and not runway, which is an analogy to a plane. A plane takes off with the lift going under the wings, correct? Of course, it has a limited runway to get to lift. But if a plane ever gets to lift, it doesn't actually matter how long the runway is, correct? And this is a really good example of data that might not be relevant for a certain person, correct? If a person doesn't have that mindset, talking about lift doesn't make sense. Talking about growth, a person doesn't care about runway, then it doesn't matter talking about runway. In both cases, I actually think it's never relevant to talk about runway in the deck, but these are just examples. You need to be thinking about, are these people really caring about this while I'm presenting, or they want to go into nitty-gritty details in my data room or in a further conversation?
Okay. Yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Cool.
Thank you so much for your answer.
No worries. Hey, that's why I'm here. Anyone else has a question? No? Okay. So I guess it was concise enough. And are we on time, Mel?
Yeah, we are. We've got another 10 minutes if anyone wants to ask anything. Otherwise, we can wrap up. I don't know if you can share the presentation here in the chat while everyone's still here.
I can. 1 second. I will stop presenting it. And then what I'll do is I'll get a link of this for everyone to be able to access. Just give me a
Awesome,
second.
thank you.
Opposed to what I just said, I didn't prepare that link, but you know, there's a saying that when you're a metal worker at home, you have a wooden spoon. So I didn't prepare well enough for this, so I don't have the link at hand. But give me a second.
That's okay. We can share it afterwards. I just thought while everyone's here, it would be
No, it's fine.
And while you're doing that, I'll just stop the recording here. So thanks everyone for joining, and I'll end the recording.